people have such difficulty with the idea of Jesus being the Messiah? Hi, I'm Ron Cantor, the president of Shalano TV, right here in Israel, and welcome to the old city of Jaffa. We're addressing 7 Jewish objections to Jesus as the Messiah. The Hebrew Bible says that the Messiah would come as a conquering king, not a suffering servant, or at least that's what many Jewish people say. In talking with Orthodox Jews about Jesus, they explained that if he had been the Messiah, he would have conquered Rome and set up his messianic kingdom. The concept of Messiah varies within the Jewish world, but most believe that the Messiah will lead the world into a messianic age of world peace, or tikkun ha'olam. This is described in Isaiah chapter 2, when the nations come up to Jerusalem, learn God's ways, and they beat their swords into plowshares. And in Zechariah 14, which speaks of the Lord being king over the whole earth, and the nations coming to Jerusalem to worship him during the Feast of Tabernacles. As Messianic Jews, we absolutely believe in those passages, but we believe that they will be fulfilled in the second coming of Jesus. Some in Judaism say that there are actually 2 concepts of Messiah. One is called Messiah ben David, and the other is Messiah ben Yosef. The former comes as a conquering king, but the latter, like Joseph of old, goes through intense suffering that ends up benefiting the Jewish people and the whole world. One scholar says he will die in combat with the enemies of God and Israel. You see, the same prophet who talked about a time of world peace also spoke 700 years before Jesus was born about a man who would come to Israel and die for their sins. Let me read you just a little bit from this passage, and let me remind you, this is written in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, not the New Testament. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. It continues, for he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was punished. Though the Lord makes his life an offering for sin, he will see his offspring and prolong his days. And the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By my knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. When I once read this passage to a Jewish man, a friend of mine, he accused me of reading from the New Testament. He told me, stop reading from the New Testament. Go ahead and read the whole chapter on your own. Isaiah 53. Much of the Torah centers around blood sacrifice. Have you read Leviticus? It says that only blood can atone or take away sin. That's why on Yom Kippur, a goat is supposed to be sacrificed. You may say, but I fast on Yom Kippur. Fasting was merely the position of humility in which we brought the sacrifice. Fasting could never take away sin. In the very next chapter, after Yom Kippur, Leviticus says this, quote, "For the life of the creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life." You see, before Messiah could establish peace on earth, he had to establish peace in our hearts. In the same way that the blood of the Passover lamb protected the children of Israel, the blood of Messiah protects us from the enemy of our souls. This may sound strange, but it lines up exactly with the Hebrew Bible. Jesus could heal the sick, raise the dead, and even command weather. When they came to arrest him, they fell down on their faces as he said, "I am he." He could have led a revolution. Yes, the Jewish people under Roman rule wanted a Messiah who would free them from Rome. Instead, Yeshua, Jesus' Hebrew name, was a conqueror who would free them from sin.